this topic, I will be honest, I could talk to you about angels all day long, but if I were to ever focus on one topic for the rest of my life, it would be forgiveness. And so I want to take you on a little bit of a journey today. I ask that you have an open mind and an open heart. So I don't have this in my little magic book over here, but I'm really insanely curious. So would anybody like to explain what their experience was like? Anybody like to share? You can say anything you want to about it. Yeah. Lighter. Mm-hmm. Good. Excellent. What else? Yeah. Yep. Yes. Yes. May I share my experience of you as you were going through it? I definitely could feel that, like, ooh, right? Like your energy was all over the place. And then all of a sudden I was like, ooh, gotcha. I could feel that. It was like, ooh, like this. But then it was like this flower that was just opening up very slowly. And then all of a sudden it was right back to it. That was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. A little powerful? Tell me more. Yes, you can. There is a strength and a power to it, and the simplicity, right? Yeah, excellent. One more. Yeah. Cathartic. Tell me more. Solving problems. Okay. Just a little bit more, Bill. Okay, so all the people involved were gaining something from it. So it wasn't just a meditation per se, it was actually a gain from doing that. Yeah, awesome. So I have had the pleasure and the joy of talking about forgiveness for many, many years. I have courses on forgiveness. We work with angels working with forgiveness. And when I asked all of the people that follow me, hey, I'm going to go do this talk on forgiveness, what do you think I should say? And the beautiful thing was that they told me all the things that I've taught about them. And I was like, that's awesome, that's wonderful. I'm not going to do a thing. And I'm going to do something brand new. And they're like, brand new? We want to come. Well, the thing is, I live in Monroe, so I'm 3 hours away. So I don't have my entourage with me here today. Very glad that we are recording this because they're insanely curious of what we're going to do today. So when I talk about forgiveness, oftentimes people will say, this is a cognitive thing, right? We have to go through a process, a system for forgiveness. You absolutely can if that feels right to you. But it can also be as simple as what we just did. I try to remember that we are all one. Now, let me just help you understand what has happened in my week this week, as the world has seemed to have lost its mind just a little bit this week. Apparently, all the people in my life have too. Sometimes that's what I feel like. So on Monday, I got the call that my dad has a brain tumor, had a stroke, and is diagnosed with Parkinson's. There was some forgiveness that I and the Creator had to go through in that moment. On Wednesday, I got the call from my brother, who is 30 years old, had a rough time coming out of the Marines, and he said, Michelle, I can't do this anymore. And he was this close to suicide. 2 days ago, I was having dinner with my daughter, who is 18, and she's a college sophomore now at MSU. And she shared some truth with me that really just shocked my heart. And so as I've traveled throughout this week, doing all the things that I do, loving on all of the people that I can, I've really had to focus on forgiveness, on unity, on wholeness. And so when people are kind of losing their mind at current events, I'm like, yeah, you need to do this too. Please, we all need to do this, right? But I really want to tell you a story. So as Michael said, I've got a wide range of experiences, I should say, in the spiritual realm. But I have died 3 times. Like clinically dead, 7.5 minutes of my life. This lifetime, I have been dead. I'm a big fan, just so you know. It feels really good. So people are like, oh, I have a fear of death. I'm like, I do not. I know I'm going to stick around for a while. I'm only going to do it one more time, so it's okay. But the second time I died, I'm going to share a little bit about what happened. So my youngest, she is 16, emergency C-section. She and I actually both died during that scenario. So I'll only share a little bit because it's a very long story. Maybe Michael will invite me back sometime and I can share the other stories. But essentially what happened was I participated in this life review. You guys heard of that? You know, you go to heaven, you kind of do the scan of your life, you know, and then somebody weighs your stuff and were you more good or were you more bad, right? That's not how it was. I go into this room and it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's got some angels in it, but it's like a control room, right? There's all these buttons and these screens, and I was like, well, this is not what I was expecting, right? And my angel says, hey, you know, we're going to do the life review. And I was like, okay, how does that work? What do I have to do? And he said, you don't have to do anything. Here, sit in this chair. And I was like, okay, this sounds awesome. So what he did was he showed me on these screens every single moment that had happened in my life up until that point. And I mean every moment. So it equally felt like I was there for an eternity, but also for just a few minutes. So I was not seeing it from the perspective of, here's what you did, this is what you did right or wrong, these are the lessons that you learned. I saw what happened, and each person that was in that scenario, I heard their thoughts and I felt their feelings. So when I was 2, 3, and 4, unfortunately, my grandfather, there was a lot of sexual abuse that happened. And during that time, as I was going through those scenarios, I heard his thoughts. And I felt what he was feeling. And the anguish and the woe and the anger that he had, but also this sense of like, you know, he kept saying, you got to stop this, you got to stop this, you got to stop this. Right? And going through that, after that particular piece, I thought, I wonder why more bad stuff didn't happen. How, knowing his thoughts and his feelings, could he stop when he did? And then when my mom, who was going through some times of mental illness, she just had a very particular way about disciplining her children. And I got to hear her thoughts. And the fear that she had that her children would end up like her. The anguish and the woe that she had that she didn't know what to do. How many of you are parents? We don't know what we're doing, right? You know, when your kid says you don't know what you're doing, you just say, yeah, you're right, I don't. And you won't either. And so to hear her thoughts and to also hear the grief that she had, knowing that when she's hitting us, she knows this is not right. I should not do this. But then I thought, why didn't more bad stuff happen? How could she stop when she did? And when my dad, God bless him, he's doing the best he can in life, but when he would go off to work, knowing I'm going to work these 3 jobs, I know I'm not here for my kids, I know we're living out of a car, I know, but I'm doing the best I can, the anguish and the woe that he had, and how he went through the grief all throughout his working day because he knew he wanted to be with us. And I thought, why didn't more bad stuff happen? And so as I was going throughout all of these different things that happened in my life, it was heavy, let me tell you that, it was heavy. But it gave me such a perspective that after, when I finally came to and, you know, everybody stopped being a little too excited about me dying, right? I was like, what's the big deal? It's no big deal, I'm here, you know? But with time, I got to have that perspective of, wow, everybody is going through it, aren't they? Right? And we just don't know what people are going through. And so forgiveness for me became not just, up until then, it was like a mental tool, an exercise, a resource, something to write in my journal, right? I've done my work. But everything started to shift and change for me, and I realized, number one, for the grand majority of the time, nobody really needs forgiveness, they need understanding, right? Now, some people I'm willing to give more understanding, and others I'm like, you can have understanding as long as you go stand over there, right? Forgiveness does not mean that we're not, taking care of consequences. We're not doling out, things that need to be happening. We're not saying, with forgiveness that this is okay. We're saying, I get it. You're a person who is having a struggle right now, right? If someone is giving you a hard time, what do you have to do back as a human? They're pushing your buttons. They know it. What do you got to do? You got to push them back, right? Right? But if someone is having a hard time, let's say a friend, your child comes up and they're having a hard time and you can tell, right? What do we naturally do? We want to love, we want to support, right? We don't see that they need forgiveness. We see that generally they need a hug and a grilled cheese cut diagonally and a kiss on the forehead and maybe a nap, right? And as long as you're taken care of and you're regulated, there's no need for forgiveness. But who gets to decide the difference between someone is giving you a hard time and someone is having a hard time? You. You get to make that interpretation. And so for me, often, honestly, probably 95% of the time, I just need to forgive myself. Like, I forgot myself in that moment, therefore I was unable to be with you, right? So that's what I think about when I think about forgiveness. The activity that we did with the light, that is the simplest, easiest, highest energy forgiveness that you can do. Because oftentimes what happens is we have stories, right? I'm telling myself a story about this person. Do they deserve my forgiveness? What justifies, the forgiveness that I'm going to give them? Oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself and give my forgiveness. But in reality, what's happening when we think we're holding them hostage is we're holding ourselves hostage. We're putting ourselves in prison, and we're wondering why our life is the way that it is. And so one thing that I know that has changed my life completely is forgiveness. So you guys have been talking about manifestation, breaking through boundaries, right? Right? Trying to help out my friend here so he knows you're listening. So the one tool that I know that can do that for sure is the tool of forgiveness. Because when you send the light and you unify everybody that you can within you, you are a whole, complete individual, and you have more power to move forward. Now, here's just a little teeny bit of brain science. How many of you like science? Yeah, I knew there'd be a couple of you here. Okay, so I love brain science. I do have a PhD. I also have a couple masters. I have a master's in psychology only because I got to the end of my PhD, and they were like, Michelle, we've looked at your transcripts, and you've taken a lot of courses, and you can actually get another master's in psychology. I said, well, that's awesome, but I've been around, and so I have some questions. Do I have to write a paper? Do I have to take a test? Do I have to do a project, research? They're like, no. I said, what do I have to do? They said, you just have to sign this paper. Sold, I'm in. That is how you know you've gone to school far too long, when they're just willing to give you an extra master's, okay? So one of the beautiful things about our brain is that when it is in a place of regulation, so when you have the least amount of stress possible, you have the highest amount of creativity and ability to solve problems. So how many of you would say there's something in your life that you're trying to break through? There's a health goal, there's a wealth goal, finance, fitness, family, whatever that is. Do you think it's important for your brain to be creative and solve problems? Do you realize that bitterness and unforgiveness steals power from your brain? Forgiveness is our superpower. And if you still don't believe me, one of the things that I love to do is I have sessions with loved ones, usually of my clients, families, friends, end of life. Usually it's a remote, energetic kind of session. And there are 3 things that we typically cover in those sessions. The first usually is if there's any sort of pain, right? Just okay, we'll take care of that pain. The second usually is there's something about my family, right? One recently, the kids were all fighting, and so the mom, who was literally in the deathbed, said, "Will you please tell them to shut up?" And I said, "Yes, that's my most spiritual task I've ever been given. Thank you so much." And then sometimes it's, hey, we didn't sign this insurance paper. She needs to do it while I'm still alive. Please tell her. This is the filing cabinet. This is the drawer. She needs to go get the thing. Okay, great. We can do that. But by far, 100% every single session, we work on forgiveness. Used to be that I'd just say, "What do you want to do?" Right? And then all of a sudden there was that pattern. And now I'm like, let's get to the forgiveness. Because your level of forgiveness, if you believe in multiple lives, I do, I've experienced it, your level of forgiveness in this life matters in the next one. Not what you've done, not the lessons you've learned, your level of forgiveness. So it truly is a superpower. How can I stand on this stage today knowing all of the things that have happened in my week? Because of forgiveness.